What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the On the Perf podcast. Adam and Adam here, and today we're going to talk about match management. So buckle up, get your overlay cards out. This is On the Perf.
Oh man, that sounded so much more professional than the way I did it.
I had lots of practice. I hope Dave Hartman is proud of that one. Dave, text me later when you hear that. But anyway, what we're talking about today is we are both staring down the barrel of what we would call our last major event for the year. PCSL Two-Gun Nationals kind of brings up the rear on the end of the season. They traditionally are held in places that can go pretty deep into the fall, and being a newer series, they're not competing with traditional dates. So traditionally, the PCSL Championship has been the first weekend in December. We are currently making room for Turkey right now. It's the week of Thanksgiving, and starting to make our preparations to head out to the Two-Gun Nationals. So we thought today we would talk you through how we approach an event from a management standpoint, right? Like when it's your turn to actually shoot, it's your turn to be the athlete, but most of us are also self-managed, so there's a lot of logistical stuff we have to talk about, a lot of mental preparation stuff we're going to talk about. So we're just going to talk about all the non-shooty bits to get you to the prize table, I think is what we're going to talk about today. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, well, in many ways, the non-shooty bits are just as important as the shooty bits, because if you do the non-shooty stuff terribly, then when you get to the shooting part, you're all over the place. So if you have everything kind of, buttoned up and put together, then the shooting part tends to go significantly better.
If everything leading up to the audible start signal is chaos, that will probably carry on after the audible start signal. Whereas most people who are calm, cool, collected, and crush stages, like all their other ducks in a row as well, unless they're just like total ADHD head cases, which there's those out there too, but we can't really speak to those.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of people loading mags while they're on deck.
No,
that do well.
Right.
Yeah, those people don't do well.
So
I think the important thing is for the important thing. There's going to be about 100 important things. Anybody who takes the sport seriously enough will be there the day before the match.
Oh yeah.
Like, the match doesn't start on match day. The match starts the day before the match. So whatever your flight schedule looks like, you better be on the range the day before the match with enough time to confirm zero on all of your guns, and at a bare minimum, walk the stages that you're going to shoot the next day.
Yep.
Ideally, walk all the stages, because things happen.
Right. And so like right now we're 10 days out.
Something like that.
So, and also Adam and I are unique in that we're both getting to the match in two different ways. Adam's driving and I'm flying. So from a flying standpoint, we're going to talk about flying to matches in another episode when there's far less shooting going on. But
that's a whole thing.
That's
for sure.
That's a whole thing. I've done some YouTube videos on it. 3-gun AMAX on the tube, if you want to go check that out. But so right now, if you're flying to a match and we're at this 10 days out window, the first thing you got to think about is getting your ammo there, because pretty much the amount of equipment you have to bring the amount of ammo you need for a multi-gun event, you can get away with flying with your ammo for a pistol event. For a multi-gun event, you pretty much are looking at trying to ship it ahead. So I am right now staring down the barrel of how much ammo do I need and getting it shipped ahead of time to get there. I have cached some ammo with Adam, actually, at a previous event. I was like, hey, keep that for later, but I definitely need to supplement that. And so first step on managing this match is making sure you ship ammo, and shipping ammo has to go Ground, you can't overnight ammo, technically. Should say you can't overnight ammo and get caught. But so you're anticipating shipping ammo to the location, either the match itself or the hotel you're going to be staying at, with enough time for it to arrive ground. That is probably the first step for me. And so looking at doing that tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, when I'm flying to a match, I will ship ammo ahead of time with enough time for me to ship ammo again if anything goes wrong. So I try to ship ammo like a couple weeks out, and
Yes.
I try not to ship to the hotel. I've had some hotels freak out when a box of ammo shows up.
Oh yeah.
I try to ship to the match, but I try to ship with enough time that I can call and confirm that my stuff got there, and then if nothing arrived, I can send another shipment. I haven't had that happen, but I've had nightmares about it.
Yep. And fairly common practice now that most major events will either list an address that you can ship it to. Usually it's either the range itself or one of the key match staff people. I know for multi-gun nationals, you can ship it right to the venue because that is a staffed location. Yeah, so when you're signing up for an event on Practice Score, if it's not listed there, you can reply to the do not reply, and it gets to the match director, ask me how I know. But you can reply and be like, hey, where's a good place to send ammo to? And you're not being a dick for asking. And they will or should have an address. Be like, hey, it's cool to ship it to this address. And you want to make sure you do that with plenty of time to spare. I am cutting it too close right now, but we're also going to Vegas, so if it goes really sideways, I also know the first 3 places I'm going to look to purchase ammo to replace it. So,
yeah, we're now getting back into the timeline where you can drive to a Cabela's or a Sportsman or a Shields and buy ammo the day before the match. We had a little stretch there where that was not a thing,
yep.
and that was a very frustrating chunk of time. But we're past that. Hopefully forever. We'll see.
So from a road trip standpoint, Adam, when do you actually consider yourself to have stepped off and start like preparing for departure? What does that look like for you?
So I'm driving down there. So I'm shooting the staff match, which means that I need to be on the range Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'm shooting Wednesday and Thursday, so I need to be on the range Tuesday early enough to shoot zero all my guns, walk all the stages, do stuff like that, which means I need to do the driving portion on Monday, which means I need to pack Sunday night. So I know that I have enough ammo loaded. I load all my stuff except for my shotgun, so I do that well ahead of time and kind of set aside ammo that's going to be my match ammo. And then I will pack all of my stuff outside of my gear room. I'm a very checklist, super anal retentive kind of guy because I have forgotten extremely important things in extremely hard to get to places before, and that's really not fun. And so I will do all of my packing the day before I'm going to drive, knowing that I physically have everything that I need. The last thing that I'll do is I'll clean all of my guns. I'm a kind of terrible gun maintenance person. I don't like cleaning guns, but I will give everything a good deep clean before I'm going to go to a major match to make sure everything's running. So I will make sure that is done. And then I will do all of the packing, which involves putting stuff in the appropriate boxes and then piling it outside of my gear room and checking it off of the checklist as it goes into that pile. So when I get to the end, I have a checklist with no unchecked boxes, and I know that everything that I need for this match or everything that I might possibly need for this match is in a pile, which is going to go into my truck or my van and then head on out. And then I will pack everything into the van in the morning and then kick off on the drive. It's like 6 hours to Vegas, so it's not a huge deal. So it'll be a nice lazy morning. But the packing strategy for driving to a match is drastically different than the packing strategy for flying to a match because I have unlimited space, unlimited stuff. So I'm going to have a bunch of things that I will not use and have barely ever used, but who the hell knows? Maybe they'll be useful at this match.
That is the beauty of driving.
It is the beauty of driving. I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring an extra of every gun.
Yeah, at least
like,
twice as many guns as you need.
Yeah, there will be 6 guns plus carry guns in the van instead of flying to a match where you just have one of everything. I even bring another belt and pouches for my backup gun is not a 2011. I have a 2011 primary gun and a CZ backup gun, which is quite a bummer.
It's aggressive.
So I will bring all the pouches for, both guns. And I have never had to actually go to a backup gun at a major match.
Oh, I have.
But I have loaned out a gun at, I would say, 50% of the matches I've ever shot. I have given one of my backup guns to another competitor because their gun went down. So that's,
I have gone to a backup gun,
and
I have loaned out my backup gun way more than I've used it. I for sure, especially being an Atlas athlete, I tend to have 2 pistols. So I have a Atlas pistol ready to go. If you're ever at a match and we're kind of friends and you're in a tight spot, come hit me up. What I do want to latch on to, though, you talked about cleaning your guns. All right, that is super important. I don't know when it became so in vogue to be lazy, but it's the thing now. Everybody, I'm customer facing in the industry. Everybody tells me all the time, I never clean my guns. I'm hard on stuff, blah, 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 blah. Here's the deal. Like, if you're going to an event like this, you paid a lot of money to go to a multi-day event. It's at least important to you on some level. You probably want to, whatever skill level you're at, you want to do well. And it's an equipment-based sport, all right? Anything mechanical, even like one of my other hobbies, is off-road motorcycles, all right? Like, anything mechanical can break, all right? So some things just wildly out of your control could totally derail your match. So the thing about cleaning guns, don't think about it as cleaning. Thinking about it as maintenance and setting your equipment up for the best chance for success for it to run 100%. It probably can, if you invested in quality equipment, you can shoot thousands of rounds through it without cleaning. Yes, we all know. But think of it in terms of if you have an equipment issue on a stage, how heartbroken would you be? Right?
Yeah.
Like I took a piece of equipment to a match just this past weekend. I knew it was like 90%, but won't bore you guys with the details. But I was like, oh, well, I can get through. I got through, but I also have that asterisk in my head of like, well, I got 10th. I could have been 8th. All right, but 10th is what counts. So it is important when you're starting to pack. I like cleaning guns, unlike other Adam, but I shoot guns enough now. When I first started shooting, I would go out, shoot, come home, clean gun, put gun away. I shoot enough now that that's not terribly practical, and I know I don't have to. So I pretty much leave the maintenance on match guns right up until I'm up against a major event like this. So my 3-gun rifle, my 3-gun pistol, my shotgun will generally, they will go uncleaned until just before the event, and then will be uncleaned until the next event. During the season, that might only be a couple weeks. It might be longer than that. Or if at the event, if it's an event where you're out in some weather and they get rained on, stuff like that, where now I'm fighting corrosion, I'll clean it when I get home too, just to manage the moisture. But it's so important to set yourself up for success and bring equipment that is as mechanically maintained as it can be.
Well, at the top level especially, the margin has gotten so small. So I remember the match that I always use as an example was a UML match down in Vegas a couple years ago. So I was on the box, and the gap between the person in front of me and the person behind me was 0.57 seconds at the end of 3 days of shooting. That is so one click and racket is like 3 places in that match.
Yeah.
So like the what's the saying, that the loudest noises your gun can make is if it goes bang instead of click or click instead of bang. Like if you're shooting a stage and your gun goes click, that is a multi-position problem when you're at a match with a lot of heat. And yeah, that's it. It does happen, but if it happens because you were lazy, then man, shame on you. But yeah, so I clean everything up, pack everything. I check everything off of a checklist that I have.
Have a checklist. Have a checklist.
Have a checklist, for God's sakes.
I don't like
checklists,
but I still. It's actually the free little keychain thing that Steve Anderson gives you when you like order from his pro shop or whatever. But it's a super simple thing. It's guns, mags, eyewear, ear protection, stuff like that. Try not to forget anything that you can't buy along the way.
Yeah. If you don't have a checklist to start, so I use Google Keep.
Yep. Pretty
much my entire life runs through that. So if you ever want to like ruin my life, just hack into Google Keep and delete my account, and I'll be worthless. But on that checklist is, in little subcategories, pretty much everything that I need for anything, all the way down to like spare batteries, Loctite in the toolkit, that kind of stuff. So if it's like if there is a rifle going to a checklist, there is a subcategory of everything that I could possibly need to go with that rifle. And sometimes you look at a thing and you're like, at this match, bipods aren't a thing. Like a PCSL rule set at major matches states that you can't use bipods or bags. But I'm still going to bring a bipod because I'm still going to zero my rifle, and I want to do that correctly. So I still need a bipod. So it's really easy to just like brush over that in your head and be like, oh, I don't need a bipod. You can't use them in PCSL, but you do if you want to get a good zero, or you need, a good front bag, or whatever your process is. But yeah, have a checklist, use that stuff. And I think the other big thing is, so I'm going to bring all those backup guns. I'm going to bring extra random stuff like a tripod and range finding binos and, things like that I'm going to use for, zeroing or helping other people, or I'm staffing, so I might end up using that kind of stuff for like calling hits. But I'm super not going to skimp on ammo.
No.
If I'm driving to a match, it is 2 cases of birdshot, a bunch of slugs, an ammo can of 5.56, an ammo can of 9mm. I do not ever even want to reasonably consider how much ammo I have left if I'm driving to a match. And then if somebody else is stuck, I can just hand them whatever they need.
That is so stressful. And I just went to the Fall Brawl, and I shipped a tighter amount of ammo than I normally ship. And, it does. That is stress that really creeps into your head. Now, I was shooting with known friends who I knew were driving, so, like, I knew I could trade for ammo. He gave me pistol ammo. I traded him the rest of my slugs, and we were square. But yeah, it is very stressful to get down to the end of the match, or even worse, to make strategy decisions based on how much ammo you have. Like if you have the option to go all pistol, and that's the smart option, but you're like, I don't have enough pistol ammo to do that, so I'm going to
Yeah.
All right, you want to have enough ammo that you could make that decision. So, like, my rule of thumb, whether it's Tuesday night league or a major match, I try to bring at least enough ammo to shoot the match twice.
Yeah. Well, and reshoots are a thing.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like, and if you're shooting a big 3-gun match, you get to the end of a 100-round stage, and they're like, oh, well, you have to reshoot because of blah, blah,
Rage
blah.
equipment malfunction.
And now you have 5 slugs and 25 birdshot and 50 pistol and 12 rifle that you didn't account for. That is a serious problem. So yeah, you don't want that. You don't want that. So then we get to the match.
Well, getting there, how much driving will you do in one poke?
12 is my limit.
By yourself or assisted?
By myself. That's like get in the van and drive 12 hours. Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of similar. Like when I first started, now I was pretty, just to give people an idea, I was pretty blue collar when I first started. So like I was trying to take the minimum amount of time off work, and then I was going to cannonball running down there. And I was a truck driver, heavy equipment operator guy. Like 22 hours of driving equipment was not a big deal for me. I would like cannonball run. Like I drove from Minnesota to Virginia International Raceway for the Three Gun Nation Pro Series by myself. I think I took a 2-hour nap at a wayside rest stop with my 45 on the console kind of thing.
Well, you were seriously contemplating driving out to Parma to shoot the team match with me a couple months ago.
Yeah.
From home.
I drove.
That's a drive I would not even consider.
I drove from Parma to a work event in Ohio, and I had 26 hours to get there after I left. Now,
that's so not good.
Now it's horrible. But I didn't have to shoot a match when I got there, so I shot the match and then
that does change things.
But so suffice to say, usually if we're driving to events, I would say because what you want to also, because that is taxing on your body. Both you're changing potentially time zones, you're potentially changing climates. And it's just, unless you're a truck driver, nothing against truck drivers, because I was one, but like, unless you're used to that amount of road time, that is different for your body, and it is different stressors on your body. You want enough time to get there, do all the stuff that we haven't even talked about yet, and be like rested and ready to go. So for the most part, if I can't make it in... I pretty much draw like a 9 to 10 hour circle around my home base. If it's more than that, I pretty much anticipate it being a two shot drive. I plan on driving. I don't really put a limit on myself as like how much I'll drive. I plan on driving until I'm tired, or until I get to a stopping point. Stopping, getting a rest, and then starting again. But I am budgeting essentially 2 days, or I'm budgeting a whole travel day to get there if I'm driving.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. It's like whether I'm doing a 6-hour drive like I'm going to do to this match, or I'm doing a 12-hour drive to Raton to go shoot Rocky Mountain or something. I'm taking that entire day off work beforehand. Usually, I would. Right now, I just got done with this big long trip and I don't have a job yet. I'm starting again in January. But if I was working, I may be like duck out at 3 and then drive that night. But I pretty much want to be at the location when I wake up in the morning, so I can use that whole day to zero guns, walk stages, that kind of stuff. Nothing sucks worse than your flight was a little bit delayed and then you missed your connection and then you got in. So you get to the range at 6 and the sun goes down at 8 and you're like, well, should I zero guns or walk stages? Because I can only do one of those.
Yep.
And if you pick wrong, it's like if you walk stages and it turns out that, the gorillas that were tossing your guns into the airplane did something extra spicy and your rifle isn't zeroed anymore, like that could be your whole match. Or you went and zeroed guns and everything was fine, but you didn't walk stages. So now you're using your 5-minute walkthrough to develop a stage plan on a 60-second stage. Good luck. You are going to get murdered. I hope you have a friend who has a good plan, who can give that plan to you with the least amount of words possible.
Yep. On the flying side, I would say my general rule, I don't try to get there as early as Adam does. But I am trying to get there in time to walk stages. I still pretty much budget an entire day to fly unless you can direct flight, like if you're gonna hit like a hub, like it's a quick hop and you can get there. For the most part, like there aren't as many flights, like there aren't as many options in flights as there were, I feel like 5 years ago. So when you're flying, you're somewhat subject to the flights you can get and the layovers. So for the most part, regardless, hitting anywhere in the country, I pretty much budget a whole day to get there. And I'm trying to get there in enough time to get to the range and walk stage. I'm planning. I want at least 2 hours before dusk or before they're kicking you out of the range, if that's a thing. Usually they let you be there till dark though. So I'm budgeting at least 2 hours from dark. So the 2 hours plus the time to get there, depending on what range that is, you may still have an hour and a half in the car or something like that, plus your arrival time. So usually when I'm flying, I don't live in a hub city, so I have to fly out of Madison early. Usually that's like a 5 or a 6 o'clock in the morning flight, hit a connection somewhere, and I'm hoping to land in the target state or between noon and 3 o'clock usually to get to the range to walk stages in the afternoon. I definitely recommend you take Adam's advice on checking zero. However, I usually do not. I hedge against just I don't normally check zero, but I will for sure. I absolutely want to see all the stages. If I can't have my plan like 100%, I at least want to see all the stages to understand what's out there. And if I don't have enough time to look at them, like to fully digest a plan, I at least want to know, like, hey, this one's pretty simple. I can figure this one out, after tomorrow. Or it's like, oh, stage 10 has something really weird. I need to go and put some thought into that when I have some time in my schedule. But I'm still budgeting a whole day to get there, and I'm trying to get there in enough time to walk all the stages.
Yeah, so in all my years of checking zero, because I run good gear and I run a good optic and I run a good rifle and I run a good mount between the two, because you don't want to put a nice optic on a nice rifle with a terrible mount. That's just a sucker's game. I have never had to adjust my rifle more than 0.2. And at some matches, like this match, that would not matter at all. Like minimum target size for PCSL is 8 minutes. Like 0.2 ain't gonna matter at all. If you're shooting something down in Texas with a bunch of 400 and 500 and 600 round shooting, or 600 yard rifle shooting, that's going to be a humongous problem. 0.2 is enough to really wreck you. So where
for the
you're
Parma
going,
team match, we ended up messing with zeros quite a bit.
Yeah, that was like a whole thing. I mean, that was like at least an hour at the zero bay.
Oh yeah,
for you.
For me,
I like we had already zeroed. We were done, and it was just an hour because there's basically no rules there. So there's 6 arcs and 6.5 Creedmoors and 223s and slugs and pistols and all. It was a lot of zeroing, but so recognize the match that you're going to and how important that part is. But yeah, like Adam pointed out, a good handful of years ago, went and shot a match out in Colorado, and almost all of the stages you could put together in like a couple minutes and be like, oh, this is how we're going to do it. And there was one stage with a big horseshoe and a bunch of optional targets that took an hour. Like I was like 55 minutes into my walkthrough and finally had a plan when Dave Hartman rolled up. And I was like, hey man, this is plan A, this is plan B, go pick one of them. I just saved you an hour, you're welcome.
Right.
But check out the stages and recognize the ones that are going to be a problem. But at the bare minimum, have a plan for your stages that you're going to shoot the next day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, I would respect and treat this time as some of the most important time you're going to invest all weekend. Like showing up, like being customer facing for my job, I have to be approachable to some standpoint. But like, if people see me at the Mage or Orange, or if I travel with my friends from work, like Ruben and Travis just know that if we get bogged down in walkthrough time talking to people, like I'm just gonna walk out. I'm gonna go to the next stage. Like I try to lock in as much as possible during that time. Or have enough time, like show up at Riser 30 to walk through, just in case you get bogged down talking to somebody about their cat or whatever. Have, so get there. This is important time. Have enough energy, right? So like, don't come in all strung out from the road if you can avoid it. Be hydrated. Have eaten. Like that was some of the stuff. Like I would get there in time and I would be walking, but I couldn't concentrate because I hadn't eaten yet. I hadn't managed my fluids. Like you want to get there and be walking stages and be as sharp as if you were going to shoot.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. This stuff matters. So in bigger matches, and actually, I mean, in most major matches these days, regardless, one of the things I do is as soon as I come up with the stage plan, I will actually film my stage plan so I can kind of, go over it again that night. And especially when it comes to like you're walking a stage that you're going to shoot on day 3, it's really hard to just close your eyes and remember what stage 12 used to look like. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things I do is I visualize the stages, the night before the match, so I kind of have that locked into my head. So I will just hold out my phone and I will look through my phone and I will just talk through the stage and walk it in the first person. And I think so. One of the things that we ought to jump to, I think,
you are
is
phone video stage plan guy.
I used to not be, and the more big complicated matches that I shot, things like Iron Man and Hard as Hell, where the winning stage time was 200 seconds. I'm like, I can't remember a 200-second stage 3 days from now when I close my eyes and go to visualize it. So I am a phone recording stage plan guy. I don't necessarily do that for like USPSA and that kind of stuff where the whole stage is going to be 14 seconds long. Like I can just remember that. But for 3-gun, almost always, yeah.
That never worked for me.
You're not that guy?
Although I don't know that I gave it a fair shake. But it's just I never latched onto it, and I also was I was big, just like, all right, I look at it and I got it in my head kind of thing, like, because coming out of high school and college, like I always resented note taking. Like I thought note taking was stupid, and I wrote it down and I never used them, and I'm like, hey, I got it or I don't got it. A few years ago when I went through Steve Anderson's mental management course, and they sold me on writing things down. Like, the whole, when you write something down, you have to form the thought, you have to physically write it, and then you have to read what you wrote. So that's 3 impressions on your brain. So I actually I draw every single stage in a notebook. Now, It is not a cogent drawing that would mean anything to anyone else. It is more my representation in my head, like finding all the targets, kind of arranging them in and forming that mental picture in my head. And then that's also somewhat of a formulation of plans. So like if there's long range targets, I'm notating distances, or, if I have like a hard reload point that I want to hit, I'm notating like, okay, I want to get to here. Or a lot of times I'll like start to do a sequence, so like I'm going to shoot these targets in this order. That's kind of my map, is like sometimes I won't even draw the targets. I just write numbers in there, like what order they're going to get shot in, and then notate a hard reload and then start over again.
Yep.
But the process of writing it down gets the imprints in my head to the point where I don't even necessarily look back at the map again. That's just my process of committing it to memory. Although if I get there and I'm like, and PCSL stages are actually a lot like this, I'm like, oh shit, what was I doing here again? I will open. Oh, okay. Yep. That's what I decided. Or I can be like, oh, yeah, I know I said that on Friday, but I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to do this instead. And it also has the therapeutic benefit of once that stage is over, I actually have ritualized I will rip it out of the notebook and throw it away. So like it's like no matter what happens, that stage is over. It's done now. On to the next one.
So I think in a way we kind of use the same process, because I bet I go back and actually look at the video 50% of the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because usually like the process of making the video is enough to commit that to memory.
And you talk it through too.
And then and I talk it through. I'm like, shoot this here, watch for that no shoot, really like I talk it through in a lot of detail. And the process of making the video is enough to usually commit it to memory, and then occasionally I'll like bust it out really quick to look and like make sure that I didn't miss anything. Or sometimes I'll just like turn on the video as I'm sort of like visualizing. I'll like literally watch the video as I'm visualizing and be like, okay, yeah, that's what I remember it looking like. And then, but one of the things that I like about that is things like partials and no shoots and stuff like that, where I'm not just like come through and shoot that target. I'm like, come through and shoot those two really aggressively. But then that third one is partialed up with a no shoot. So, real deal sight picture and trigger press over there, take your time in that spot, like little kind of details. And then I have found that if the longer the stages are, the more likely I am to go back to video afterwards to like check and make sure that plan is in my head. But if I go to a match where all the stage times are within like 45 seconds, I'm probably not even going to look at a single video. But then if I go to, anything in Parma where the stage times are 200 seconds,
Thanks, Aaron.
I'm going to look at, more than half probably. But so I think one thing is I heard somebody say, I've heard this like a million times, that refer to the timer as the neuralizer from Men in Black, the thing that like deletes your memory. And they're like, oh, I had a stage plan, and then they set the timer off, and my stage plan like went to hell.
No, you didn't.
And I will submit to you that if the timer can separate your stage plan from your memory, you never had a stage plan to begin with. Like that was not a thing. So what is your process for developing it? You walk up to a stage, there's a bunch of targets in a bay, there's a written stage description and a drawing over on the right side stapled to a wall. From there, what is your process for developing a stage plan? Because I'm guessing you and I have something reasonably similar.
Yes, and these are my demons I'm still working on to this day. But
maybe not then. I retract my previous
No, I have a process, but sometimes I get tripped up on the last part. So I essentially, the easiest way I can describe it is I count the targets 3 times or 3 ways. So when I first walk up to a stage, I am trying to find all the targets. So that's where you're looking at WSB. It says how many there are. You're confirming, like, is that how many there actually are? Like, I'll actually walk down range or behind whatever facade they have, make sure I, like, count all of them so I know how many there physically are. So find all the targets first. Then I count them in order of planning a route through the stage. So is the route that I'm planning to take through the stage going to have all the targets presented on it? So do I take the route of my initial plan? Did I see all the targets with an opportunity to shoot them all? So that's the planning portion of it, right? So how do I do this so that I get all the targets in succession? And then the third time I plan them or count them is in terms of reloads or ammunition capacity. So I have a 23 round pistol, I have a 15 round shotgun, I have, whatever magazine I'm planning to use on the rifle. All right. So counting in terms of ammo management, like, I cannot get to this position without doing a reload. So where would be the best place to put in a reload? And I say that's my demons because I think I fight for getting the one target. I am the guy who gets got by the gotcha target. And so it got me yesterday. Yep. It's just, and so that's the thing is you gotta form a plan that has all the targets on it. So I will either, the reason this is my demons is I either form a plan that doesn't have a target, so I will smash a plan, but it's a target or two short of all of them, or I'm worried about part of a stage, so I'm really digesting. If there's if there's A, B, and C sections to a stage, I'm really trying to digest something in section C and section A. B's straightforward. I got it. No problem. All right. That's where I'm worried, is in section B, is like the part that I didn't pay attention to, that I breezed over in my head. I breezed over it when I shot it too. So once I get that third count, once I have a plan and I have an ammo management strategy, and this is easy to say, but is very hard to do, I try very hard to only think of a stage plan from beginning to end. Like, I try not to think of it in pieces. Like, if I'm going to visualize a stage, it is from start position to show clear. Instead of making sure I get a certain sequence right, because if you emphasize a certain sequence, you are neglecting a different sequence, and that sequence I neglected is typically where that scored error is going to come in. So I'm trying to think the whole thing as one continuous string of events. How about you?
Yeah. So pretty similar. So when I'm looking at a written stage brief, the only things that I'm really looking at is how many targets are there, where do I start, where do my guns start, what condition do those guns start in.
Yep.
Like that's the whole thing. Like, the whole written stage brief could be 2 sentences for all I care. Everything else I don't really care about. And then I'm gonna walk through. I'm gonna find all my targets. The second thing I do is I find all of the places I have to physically go to, because if you're tricky enough, sometimes you can eliminate positions, things along those lines. A great thing that, other Adam here kind of alluded to is, if you go to the targets and you walk behind the targets and you look back at the stage, you can see all of the places where each target is available from. So if you're walking through the stage, you're in the boundary, a lot of time you end up, you go all the way over to this corner because that's where you have to go to see this target. But if you walk to that target, you can actually see it from over all the way on the other side of the stage, where you have to go to shoot that Texas Star already or something. So walking to the back of the stage and looking from the target's perspective back towards the stage helps you eliminate positions in a lot of cases. So I will find all of my targets. I will find my path through the stage. I add in my reloads last, trying to put them in a place where I have the most leeway. If I got 23 rounds in the gun, I don't want to shoot to 21 and then do a reload and shoot 4. I want to like cut that in the middle a little bit more. And then if I'm shooting a TAC or limited or something with the tube fed shotgun division, I will start my count in my head with 9, because that's usually what you have. And as I shoot targets, I'll count down.
Yep.
And then as I plan reloads, I'll count up.
Yep.
So at the end, my stage plan will just have the loading part. It won't have any of the math in it. But one of the things that you get from that math is you learn at your lowest point how many rounds are still in the shotgun. So if you're counting down and counting up and you never get below 2, that means you can have 2 makeups anywhere in the stage and you don't have to load extra rounds. So that
works for the other guns
kind of gone
too.
Away.
Like if you get too many makeups on the other one, you got to hit another reload to get back on track.
Yep. 100%. So I do that. And then once I have the stage plan, and I'm kind of visualizing to a certain extent how aggressive I'm going to be on individual targets. So if I'm, long partials, I'm visualizing a real deal, like solid dot on that head box at 20 yards above a no shoot and a real trigger press. On the close 5-yard stuff, I'm visualizing a flash of red in the middle and pressing the trigger twice and moving on. So I'm kind of starting to visualize, once I have like the actual mechanics of the plan in place, I'm starting to visualize the differences in aggressiveness, I guess you'd say. And the way that I put this all in my head So a timer cannot separate your stage plan from your head, which didn't exist in the first place. In my mind, if I can visualize a stage front to back 5 times in the first person, the way that I'm going to see the stage, so I'm visualizing things like when I do a reload, I'm visualizing, seeing the bottom of the magwell and seeing the gun in, and then I'm visualizing looking towards that nail that's in the fault line that I'm going to run to so that I can hit that lean. And then as soon as I know I'm going to put my foot on that nail, I'm visualizing that partial that's the farthest thing on the left side, and I'm going to shoot that activator sequence. Once I can visualize my entire stage plan from beginning to end 5 times with no messing up, that plan is in my head. That's my litmus test for, is this thing actually in my head, to the point where if I'm shooting the stage and something goes catastrophically wrong, when I leave that position, is the whole plan still going to be there?
Yep.
Because that's where people blow it, right?
Yep.
It's like they have some pickups on the star, they have a slide lock reload, they forget to do a mag change out of that star because they were going to do one, but now they just did a reload, so they decided not to, and everything after that is warmed over dog pursuit. So yeah, that's what my strategy is.
So what about nutrition and hydration management? What do you do for that?
Oh man, there's no such thing as too much water, because most of my matches are in the desert and it's hot. Sunscreen is a thing. Sunburns and shooting don't go together well.
They often result in each other, though.
So I try to stay well ahead of both of those things. So I try to eat a reasonably good breakfast, and I came from a climbing guiding background where most of my day was like taking care of clients, and so I didn't have a lot of like sit and eat a lunch. So when I'm doing really active things, I just snack all day. I'm like, oh man, who's the guy in the Fast and the Furious who's always snacking on something during all the meetings in the warehouses? I forget his name. Anyways, I'm basically that guy. I am just constantly snacking on stuff.
What do you bring?
Good salty.
What do you bring for snacks?
So I will bring a bit of meat, because nothing gets you back on track faster than just like some beef jerky or pepperoni sticks or something like that. A good old fashioned peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a classic that can't be messed with. And then a lot of, kind of like salty finger foods like trail mix. I actually really like goldfish.
I do too.
I have goldfish in almost every match. And important random thing: don't eat the finger foods with your finger, because we're handling lead all day. So just tip the bag up and dump it into your mouth. But just if I'm walking through a grocery store, like whatever looks good, it goes in the bag, because palatability is a huge thing. If you want to eat it, you will. And if it's something that you force down because it's supposed to be the good thing for you, like you're just not going to eat it. And I have a cooler that I pack around to most matches. It's just like a little small cooler with a few liters of water in it, and the occasional, Gatorade or something like that to get some electrolytes, because they're what plants crave. And I am drinking and snacking just the entire time, basically.
Yeah, so especially if I'm away from home, like it's always like, it's not just getting something to eat, but also like getting something that gives you what you need and is kind of consistent. So like kind of a weird pro tip, like for me, it's usually Mexican food, because
that's a bold choice, Cotton.
It's never burned me, but it's kind of the same stuff. Like, and it's usually prepared from scratch, and it's fairly simple stuff. So it's usually tortilla, meat, potatoes, rice, cheese.
Yeah, cheese, tomato.
So if I can, I will try to find a breakfast burrito in the morning if I can. If not, I'm trying to get some kind of protein / carb substance to start the day. And then I'm kind of like Adam in that any snack foods that I have, I'm like Adam in that any snack foods I have, I'm trying to have foods that I don't have to touch with my fingers. So it's either like power bars that are individually wrapped so I can eat it and throw it away, or it's, quasi-disposable stuff. I try not to eat a whole lot during the day. I try to kind of like load on the front end and the back end and then get through the day. I actually had a phase where I would only go liquids through the match. Like I would just like protein shakes, water, and caffeine throughout the day, and then eat at the end. I've kind of moved off that. I try to have something like a little bit more solid during the day. But definitely eat something before I get there. Have something that you can, digest during the day, so that your brain stays working in the afternoon, and then getting some good to eat when you get off the range. I'm sorry, I am a match director, so like I'm conflicted in saying this, but very, very, very rarely will I eat whatever the range food is. If there is like a lunch provided or whatnot, very rarely will I touch that. It's getting better now. Like in recent years, like range food has improved a whole lot. But like if they're like, oh yeah, and lunch is provided, I'm like, what is it? Because like
it's pulled pork sandwiches.
Nope.
Like, no, I'm good.
Pizza. Nope.
Yep.
Well,
the key thing is sticking with what you know.
Right.
Like if it is a thing where you're like, yeah, my body's going to be fine with that, sure, go eat it. If it's like, I live in Utah. We don't have a lot of barbecue in Utah. If I shoot a match in Texas and it's a barbecue food truck, zero chance I'm eating that, because who knows what it's going to do to my body.
Right.
It's probably going to be awesome, but 2 hours after you eat it, you might just absolutely crash with the worst food coma ever, or just find yourself in the
a lot of times it's like yummy. Like it is tasty food, but like from a performance standpoint, rarely is it conducive to athletic performances. So normally I will avoid, or I will forego in favor of what I planned to eat, and then get to the other side at the end.
Yeah, 100%.
And like in the middle of the summer, especially like Adam said, stuff that's in the desert, drinking at least one 12-ounce bottle of water per stage, like in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Bare minimum.
Minimum.
Yeah. Some of those matches down in Vegas, a few years ago, one of the matches, it was 120 degrees during the day. It was hot enough that they couldn't land, or they couldn't take off planes anymore because the air density was so low that there wasn't any lift. And 6 people from the match ended up going to the hospital with heat stroke. Hydration is absolutely key. Nothing will kill you faster than hydration.
Number one,
your vision goes to shit. You cramp. It's terrible.
Number one offenders on this and need to keep an eye on is ladies, in my opinion, or in my experience, because they don't want to take their belt off to pee. So, like if you bring your chick to the range to watch, or if you have ladies on your squad shooting with you, like established pros or fixtures around the range, but like if you have newer shooters and they're ladies, I pay extra special attention to them from a hydration standpoint, because they are actively trying not to take their equipment off, and I've seen quite a few get in a bad way from a dehydration standpoint in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, I had the same thing. When I was a climbing guide, the girls didn't want to drink because you're in a harness tied to a rope. You're just peeing out in the open. And, we're climbing, Mount Rainier in Washington. It's 14,000 feet. Dehydration's a real problem. Yeah, just drink what you need to drink, and just go to the safe area and take your gun off, take your belt off, and just deal with it.
What about squad stuff? I think, like, when you're actually shooting, I was not this guy for a long time. I try to bring gloves. Because all the targets, if you think about it, guys, all the targets,
they're all covered in lead.
They're getting splattered with lead. So even if it's just a barrier between you and the lead, and it's something that even if you're not totally mitigating your risk, you're at least minimizing it. Try to wear gloves, and on top of that, a lot of that stuff is sharp. So I started wearing gloves, even though I was not really a big gloves guy before. The other thing, especially if you're on the road trip plan, like Adam is, bring a chair to sit on. Most of us
Yeah.
don't spend the entire day on our feet. So like towards the end of a schedule, it actually starts to wear on you quite a bit. Just being on your feet. So sometimes just having a way to sit down and take the weight off of your feet is another thing. Sunscreen, hats, umbrellas, not a terrible idea if it's either rainy or really sunny. What else? What else is good? Survival stuff during the day.
So one of the things that I added to the repertoire recently is the neck towel, like the dunk it in water.
Oh, yep.
Style neck towel. Those are really good for desert matches. And what I've started doing is actually like wrapping that around the neck when it's hot. And then when I'm on deck, I wet it down and actually wrap it around my pistol, because grabbing a scalding hot pistol and then shooting it for, 50 rounds in a 3-gun match kind of sucks. So just being able to cool down the pistol for that thing is kind of handy. But so we've kind of jumped a little bit into like match day, but the night before, one of the things I really like to do is, so I leave the match, I go, I eat dinner, do whatever I'm doing, get back to the hotel room. I like to load mags the night before, just so I don't have anything to worry about when I get to the range. I like to just show up and have everything ready. And then, that also should give you a good idea of the route that you're going to drive to the range and how long it's going to take. And then I'll, wake up with enough time to like, get up, shower, eat breakfast, do all the things I'm going to do. If you have to find restaurants on the way to the range, that kind of stuff, that can certainly play into the morning math. And I try to show up on the range at least a half hour before I'm going to start shooting.
A lot of matches expect you to be there a half hour early. So
yeah. I mean, like an hour is a significantly more reasonable amount of time, because that allows you to get there, get all your stuff, take it to the first bay. Maybe you have a few minutes to go walk stages 2, 3, and 4, and then go back to the stage that you're on and get all that stuff in your head. But yeah, show up there with enough time that you can, kind of get the sleep out of your eyes and, get stretched out and ready to go. And then also if, there's a traffic jam on the way to the range, that doesn't screw you in the morning. So I have had it where I am like pulling up to the bay and I open up the door and I hear my name as the on deck shooter. And that stage did not go well. Brian Nelson was there for that. He was a part of the whole thing, and it wasn't good. We got our schedule all mixed up with the AM, PM, and then the Sunday mixed, and we left the hotel about the time we should have been pulling up to the range, and it ended very poorly. So don't be that guy. Show up early enough. I'm super not a morning person. Left to my own devices, I will sleep in as long as I possibly can. But when it comes to match day, I'm there on time.
Yeah, ammo management was kind of one of the things I did want to touch on. Like you said, having your ammo all loaded the night before, I definitely like to do that as well. And I'll actually make kind of an extra effort, kind of somewhat being low vis, like some matches we've gone to over the years, like when a lot of people for a match are staying at a hotel because it's the hotel and it's kind of in a, I don't know about rougher is the right word, but like, people kind of, the low lives kind of catch on that there's a shooting event in town.
You don't want to be walking out and out with gun cases.
I try to be low vis. So like, now people will go to different extremes with that, but I try to, like, I bring my guns in, but I try not to be like fumbling around with ammo in the parking lot. That can get you unwanted attention. And I also try to make the bringing of stuff in as minimal as possible. So like I'm bringing the guns in, but I'm not bringing like all my stuff in. Like I'm trying to not get it sold. Like if they're going to take it, they're going to take it. But so from an ammo management standpoint, I will try to like load all my stuff at the range before I leave, like after the walkthrough time.
Yep.
I load everything, and then at the end of like day 2 or day 3, I'm like resetting everything before I leave so that when I go back to the hotel, I'm really just kind of grabbing my 2 things and walking in. I'm not like completely dissecting my truck in full view of everybody else. And then if I can, I try to have enough magazines that I don't really load ammo throughout the day. Like I try to get through most of the day not really having to worry about that, so I can either reset because you have to, or I have my head in the game. I'm just thinking about shooting. I'm not thinking about managing equipment. And then once I have depleted magazines and loaded magazines, start segregating depleted magazines from fully loaded magazines. And of depleted magazines, segregating magazines that hit the ground and potentially need to get cleaned from magazines that are clean but could get replenished if you need more of them.
Yeah, 100%. I used to try the whole like don't put an unloaded mag back on your belt thing, but in the world of 3-gun, we're just carrying around too much crap. So as I'm pulling things off of my belt, there is a place where the loaded mags go, and everything else goes in a totally different place, and anything that needs to be clean goes in a totally different place from that.
And I started wearing a dump pouch. I saw Travis Gibson do that years back, and like the only reason I wear a dump pouch is like for all that stuff you're trying to gather up at the end of the stage. I put that in there, and that also kind of doubles as like my make ready. Like if I have enough pouches for stuff that I need or potentially need, but I also need the stuff to make ready, like those go in the dump pouch. But one of the main reasons people will see me wearing a dump pouch is because I'm gathering up all the depleted magazines and the dirty magazines, and I'm trying to keep them segregated from clean and fresh magazines.
And as a person who doesn't wear a dump pouch, one of my favorite things to do is to try to sneak large rocks into my friends' dump pouches. So I highly recommend that game. It's real fun.
I'm surprised you can get away with it. You're so small. Like you gotta like get some more places in there to put stuff.
The trick is it's like picking a pocket. You gotta distract them with like a shoulder tap or something like that. I'm kind of a hugger, so I throw arms a lot.
Oh no, I'm like, where do you stash all your equipment when you're picking it up? Like, I mean, you don't have much real estate to work with.
You just tuck a lot of armpit tucking.
A lot of armpit tucks.
Yep. So where are we at? So we're to the day. You got your plan. You're to the range. You're on your first stage.
Do you look at interim scores?
I go back and forth on that. I am currently at not looking at scores. I have gone back and forth, and I have had matches where I know where I am and I am able to strategize on the last couple of stages as a result of that. But I have found that is infrequent enough that it's usually not worth it. And I find that for the most part, knowing where I stand isn't going to change the way I shoot, because I'm going to try to put down the best possible score on every stage anyways. So at this stage in the game, I tend to not look at scores. And it's not like I'm worried that if I see that I'm, on the box or close, or I might be winning or whatever, I'm going to get all up in my head. It's more like I find that there's no added benefit to it. So why put in the time? Just shoot your match and find out after.
I'm a little bit more to one side on that, but for a similar reason. I do not look at interim scores. It started off because that could mess with my psyche for better or worse, usually worse. Or it would alter decision making. Like there is no real reason to not, once a stage is shot, that stage is in the book, and you just have to shoot the next stage. And the next stage, I'm going to shoot the best I can, regardless of whether I think I'm ahead, draw, or behind. I'm trying to do the best on every single stage, and I haven't run into a situation where I could actively strategize or make a different choice other than the best that I thought I could do. So I avoid looking at interim results. I guess when both of us started, they were still scoring on paper. So there was a time time where interim scores were posted, and it was posted on a bulletin board, and you would be going up to look for errors. And it was not uncommon to find errors, and they weren't necessarily you weren't necessarily ranked at that point. It was just showing you what your scores were, and you were comparing them to your carbon copies to make sure they got the right score. I haven't found many instances post practice score where it's like, hey, they really got mine wrong, and I caught it, and I could prove it in a way that they would change it. A few finite examples, but like for the most part, there isn't really a whole lot to look at or catch. So for the most part, I avoid it. I've managed my mental game enough now that it doesn't like totally mess up my OODA loop if someone comes up and tells me. You have to be ready for that at some point.
Yeah, 100%. Especially when you start doing well, you'll get people that run up and like, holy shit, you're winning.
Yeah.
And if that like explodes your brain, that's a problem.
But there are other dudes, they get off on that. They're on that thing immediately. They could tell you everything there is to know about them and the four people around them. I'm not one of those.
I think where I've come to is I don't there's no harm in it, but there's no gain in it. And I'm kind of like, I'm not going to, and especially, on a 3-day match, you're there at the end of day one, you've all shot different stages. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's a lot of mental energy to be like, oh, well, he shot this, but I shot that and I did pretty good there. And it looks like he had a slip up that it's just not worth the mental energy. And like, I'd rather spend that time just like hanging out with some friends and shooting the shit. And this will be my 11th year of shooting. And in that entire time, in exactly one match, I have been in a place where on the last stage, I was like, okay, Tim Yackley's in first. I can't catch him. He's got too big a gap, and he already shot this stage, and I know what he did it in, and I can't beat that. But I can lose third if I swing for the fences and don't hook up, so I'm going to lay up. On like it was like a slug
I do
plan
know some guys that have done that.
Yeah, and so like, literally one stage in one match in 10 years of shooting was I in a spot where that information allowed me to make that plan. And in retrospect, looking back at it, I'm like, I probably wouldn't have shot a different plan anyways. Like that was kind of the smart plan regardless of what the situation was.
Like I know some upper level USPSA guys do that. Like AMU guys are definitely shooting on the level where they could do that. Or, like super squad guys at USPSA Nationals are doing that. But at the same time, like if you're listening to this show, like the differences in the decisions that they're making, you probably wouldn't pick up on. Like it wouldn't look like they're laying up.
Well, and like you said, Super Squad, they all have the same stages.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, okay, we're all about to shoot stage 12, and this is the score right now, and we've all shot the same 11 stages. In 3-gun, there's generally not a Super Squad. So you might be shooting stage 9 while the guy who is your closest competitor is shooting stage 4 that you shot 2 days ago. So it's way harder to do when you're not all in the same squad.
Yep. Anything else you want to talk about while actually shooting the match?
So I think the key thing is the classic 5-minute, right? Like whether you crush a stage or you get crushed by a stage. Taking your 5 minutes to, go feel sorry for yourself about plugging that no shoot and then getting back in it. I've shot so many matches where I put down one stage where I was like, well, I'm not winning shit, but I might as well shoot like I mean at the rest of the time and then end up, winning the match or being on the box or, whatever the case was in that particular instance. Really being able to delete that from your memory, and especially with larger 3-gun matches, we play a game where perfection is not a thing. Like I've never shot a match where I was like, yep, nailed it. Like everything was perfect. I've never shot a stage where I felt that, where I was like, yep, given 10 times, I could never shoot it that well again. Like you're going to make mistakes, and from a mental management standpoint, learning how to just delete those from your memory and move on. Like every stage is the only stage in the match. that will result in your best performance overall. That's a huge deal, and something that a lot of people have a problem with. I have seen a lot of people shooting very good matches for a day and a half, and then shoot one bad stage and just implode. And that's, the thing that crushes the most. I would call like upper tier mid pack shooters is that like they're shooting very well and they have a little stumble and they just let it snowball into an absolute train wreck.
You can't win it in one, but you can definitely lose it.
Yeah, you certainly can. And you can certainly lose it if you shoot one and then you let that affect your next 3 stages. I would say like, just gear maintenance throughout, just making sure that everything is on point. If you notice that your, dot was a little bit dim on one stage, replace your batteries for the next stage, things along those lines. Resetting all of your stuff back to 0 if you're, the kind of guy that, dials depending on what kind of stuff they're shooting. Not a lot of people do that kind of stuff, but it has been a thing. What I do as part of my walkthrough strategy, if I'm shooting a open match where you can use all of the doodads, I will make a list of like, okay, on the next stage, I'm going to need a sling and a bipod and a rear bag and, like whatever stuff you need. And I will kind of like pack all of that into the rifle bag. So when I walk up, that stuff's just ready and I'm not like digging through it while I'm on deck trying to find, the shenanigans that I'm going to need for the next stage.
Condition dependent, but day to day, I try not to take guns that are working apart at the match. Unless
100%.
you're in a very dusty environment where common sense would overrule that, or if everything got soaked in the rain. Generally speaking, the round counts at these events, like the actual overall round count is like probably less than 300 rounds per gun, being quite generous.
Yeah. Well, the round count for a whole match is like
it's 175
like
or
a practice session.
So
right?
If you showed up with a clean and lubricated gun, you could probably get through the whole match leaving it alone, or maybe supplementing a little bit of lubrication. But, like some pistols or, depending on which weapon system you're talking about, if you take it apart and like you shoot a spring across the whatever, or you you don't put it back together correctly, and the next time you shoot, you get a start signal and, oh shoot, I didn't, whatever. Yeah. I heard that one a long time ago and it always resonated with me. I try not to take guns that are working apart at the match as a, call it superstition.
General rule. Well, and to that point too, because I shoot so much stuff out in the desert, I learned my first major match ever was at Parma, which has the gun destroyingest dirt on earth. And I do not have a long gun out of a bag unless I am walking to the line or from the line.
Oh, yep.
I don't put your guns in the gun rack. Leave them in your bag against the berm. You're up, unzip the bag, pull your gun out, walk, shoot the stage, walk back, put it in the gun, put it in the bag, zip it closed. Out in nice grass-filled ranges like you guys have, that might not be a thing, but in the desert, do not put your gun in your gun rack. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's a good general rule. And like even other places, they get super hot. I mean, leaving your ammo out in the sun. All right, like leaving shotgun shells out in direct sunlight, that will change their consistency. Like the plastic starts to get soft.
Yeah.
They don't feed as good. I have 2 more things. I know we're over the time we shoot for, so we're gonna try and wrap it up here. Make good decisions about who you squad with, right? Who you surround yourself with. Generally,
you're going to spend 3 days with these people. Make sure you like at least some of them and you don't hate any of them.
If you are,
I have a very short list of people that I would leave a match before I squatted with them again. There's not a lot of people on it, but there are people on it. That stuff matters.
If you're a competitive person, all right, like squad with competitive people, cream rises to the top. And so like super squads get put together. A lot of times they're friends, but also like it's kind of a competitive drive thing. If you're taking your match performance seriously, don't squad with a bunch of hoonigans, right? Like there are definitely people who are just here for the party and just hanging out. It's hard to shoot your best on a squad like that. Or Like there are squads where some people don't like to reset or whatnot, so your match performance might get hindered because other people aren't carrying their weight on reset. So sometimes, especially if you're newer to the sport, you might not know any of the names, but as you are picking where you end up, like try to latch on to either surrounding yourself with people who are there for a similar reason than you, and avoiding people who you potentially know are a degradation to your performance. So have an eye towards that. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but if you can influence that, make good decisions.
Yep, 100%.
And then the final one that I have, it's all said and done. I try, especially if you're flying, I try not to plan to fly out the same day. Again, subject to departure times. So matches very rarely wrap up on time. Awards and prize table stuff never goes fast. Even if it does, like it still feels like it takes twice as long as we would want it to. And so I plan, it is extra stress on me if I'm trying, like, if you feel like a match is running late or something like mentally you're already in kind of your next place. If you can, I try not to plan to fly out the same day. I get on the flight the next day. Or, if you're driving, I try to plan so that I can roll out, and I'll try to get started driving the same day. But like I certainly, after you adrenaline crash from a match, I try not to. I mean, if you're gonna do an all-nighter, you're probably gonna have a hard time doing an all-nighter after a match, after 3 days of kind of exerting yourself and going through adrenaline cycles. Long drives after the match are really tough, especially if you're solo.
Yeah, 100%. I've had a lot of matches where I just tell my boss, like, hey man, I'll be in at noon on Monday. Like I'm gonna take the morning off. And I've had matches where I'll drive half the drive home, pull over to rest area somewhere, sleep, wake up, finish it, go home, shower, make myself presentable after 3 days on the range, and then go into work. But yeah, it's especially the guy standing at the prize table who has 80 shooters and a bunch of sponsors that are going to go in front of him before he walks, and he has the 5 p.m. flight. That guy's not having fun.
Nope.
That guy is freaking out. So don't be that guy. Red eye at the earliest.
Yep. And only if you can avoid it. But I think that's all we got to say on that. If we didn't touch on something that maybe you think we should address in a future episode, get at us. I'm 3GunAmax on Instagram. Adam, what's your handle? Where can people find you?
It's just Adam Riser on everything.
Yep. If you think there's something you want to hear us ramble on about, get at us and let us know. We're always looking for ideas. We got some ideas of our own, but if there's something you want us to talk about, let us know. And until next time,